Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 14th of August, comes to you from London. The dollar did jump yesterday, and so that has put us back into bullish territory on the short-term chart for the index. So positive on all three time frames there, and that means, of course, that the euro is now looking weaker against the dollar, bearish on all three time frames. Against the yen, the dollar did jump yesterday, again putting us into bullish territory there. So looking better for the dollar at the moment. We a big jump there. Looking at sterling, we are weaker against that stronger dollar, sitting at 120.50 now. And the 120 level now coming under serious pressure. If we see new lows below the levels we saw yesterday, we've got a new downside target to 117, and we've already got a target there to 119 against the dollar. Looking against the euro, sterling also looking bearish here. Remembering that the euro is bearish against the dollar, sterling is even more bearish, and we've got downside target now to 102, and we're sitting at 107.82 at the moment. Against the Swiss franc, 117.50, and so we're looking pretty bearish there as well. The Aussie dollar also just sterling looking bearish too. Bitcoin has fallen quite sharply back to the $10,500 level, putting into bearish territory, and so we are seeing a short-term fall there. The US stock market jumped quite sharply yesterday on hopes that the trade war situation might improve. Not enough to put the S&P 500 index bullish, and the same with the Nasdaq, just creeping higher, and the Dow actually bearish still, even though it jumped at a massive 370 points. The Russell 2000 also still looking bearish on all three time frames. Futures down this morning, the S&P futures down, and the Nasdaq E-mini is down 1/3%. So it does suggest the US market will open lower. We're already seeing in the UK, we're slightly down on the FTSE, and still remain bearish on all three time frames. Midcaps up slightly, but not enough to change the picture there either. And the DAX down 1/4%, and the CAC 40 also down 1/4%. So we are seeing markets just struggling to rise, even though we had this big jump in the US yesterday. Most people seeing it now being fairly short-lived. Japan was actually up 0.8%, but again, not enough to change the picture here. And the Hang Seng did actually fall, even though the market in the US rose quite strongly. China was up 0.4% on those trade hopes, and India was up 1%, but not enough to take the market bullish. The Aussie market was up 0.4%, but again, not enough to take the market bullish. Brent crude jumped yesterday, got us back to above $60, and so we're short-term bullish there. And WTI also looking short-term bullish as well. US nat gas sitting at $2.16. Gold falling back to $1,500. With everything rising, gold tends to fall, and we're seeing silver also just falling back, but still holding on to its bullish trend on both precious metals. US 10-year yields now sitting at 1.65%, so still in those 160s, and looking worrying. And we're seeing the German bond prices just edging higher all the time. Negative yields becoming a feature. Disappointing GDP numbers out from Germany as well hasn't helped the picture there. Looking at the Dow, we saw the day before that everything was down. Everything but two stocks were up yesterday. Apple was up a massive 4%, and that's really found support and bounced higher, outperforming the Dow this year by about 12%. Boeing in the news, of course, one of the fallers yesterday, still looking bearish on that medium-term chart. As is Pfizer, they had terrible fall yesterday, and that chart looking very worrying, underperforming the Dow by some 40% this year, so 30% this year, so really quite marked. Looking at the Nasdaq 100, the best performer was JD.com, up 12%, NetEase up 10%. These charts still below a cloud though, and if we look at the bearish ones, Kraft still continuing its fall, AMD down 1% as well, so not everything was up, although the picture was one of mostly bullishness yesterday. Eclipse Group up 7%, and on the downside we had Pact Group down a massive 16% in the Aussie market, so they've fallen further, just in a continuous downtrend there. In India, we had the best performer was Tata Steel. They were up 5.4%. Not enough to change this bearish chart though. And looking at the fall of some pharmaceuticals, they were looking quite good there as well. Looking across to Europe now, we had the best performer in the FTSE this morning is Admiral Group. They've come out with reasonably good results, and the price has jumped on that. They're holding on to their bullish trend, and if we look at the downside, we have Everaz Group down 3%, and so that's looking bearish as well. Aston Martin were the worst performer yesterday, but in 250 now we see Balfour Beatty up 10%. They're looking pretty good today, but not great on the chart overall. And on the downside, we've got Sports Direct. They're the worst hit this morning, down nearly 4%. Chart not looking great. In Europe now, still a lot of red. We've got Sanofi up as the best performer today. They're up 1.5%. Danone also up and looking pretty good on the chart. One of the bright spots there. And if we add Adidas, we also have seen as recently has been a great performer as well. So the good performers doing even better this morning. Banco Santander, the worst performer. We're seeing banks actually just generally being hit here. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.